Anytime you can turn a strength into a gaping weakness, you should do it in the NFL. The thing that should scare Cowboys fans the most is Skip Bayless loving this move.
So, I just finished playing golf, just heard the news about Micah Parsons gone to Green Bay. And my gut reaction, as you might guess, is good riddance and good luck, Green Bay, because you just overpaid for the overhyped Micah Parsons, who will never be able to live up to that money, especially in Green Bay, where I don't think he'll ever be happy living.
Now, the contrast of emotions that are coursing through the veins of Cowboys fans and Packers fans is fascinating. Cowboys fans are calling for Jerry Jones's head, and Packers fans are calling for 40 more years of Jerry Jones being the Cowboys general manager. And as a Steelers fan, I gotta say, it's really fascinating to watch. Now, no one really knows who won a trade until we see the results on the field. And depending on the trade itself, it could take a few years for that to really play out. For example, they have their first two first-round picks that they just got from the Packers. So we have to see about who they get from those picks. But very rarely do we get to witness one team get knocked the hell out and lose by unanimous decision and have their damn house repossessed in the process, like we just saw the Cowboys do when the Cowboys traded Micah Parsons to the Packers for 2 first-round picks and Kenny Clark. Now listen, this trade doesn't guarantee that the Packers will win a Super Bowl, but it does make them a serious contender. And as for Dallas, it makes them a pretender. What's going on, guys? This is the Discussion Zone, and today we're diving into the Micah Parsons trade. How does it stack up against the Russell Wilson deal? And could this move be a game changer for the Packers? We'll see. So, when the Broncos traded for Russell Wilson, the logical part of my brain, which I do try and hide from all of you, said, yes, that is a lot to give up even for a quarterback. I understood that the Broncos gave up a ton of draft capital, 3 players, and a fuck ton of money to extend Russell Wilson, which is what one team has to do when they believe they're trading for an elite player, a destiny-altering player. And when a team has to give up that much for a player, you need at least some people asking simple questions like, is that too much to give up for Russell Wilson? When Russ left, there were plenty of analysts and Seahawks fans saying, we love Russ, but we're okay moving on from him. It's his time to go. He has flaws in his game, and we can do better. There was a large part of the collective football world that understood that move at the time for both sides. I have seen none of that in the Micah Parsons trade. It is a one-sided affair at the moment. There are no Cowboys fans saying, yeah, we needed to do this. Micah was a problem. Micah's old. Micah's declining. Micah actually isn't as good as the national narrative suggests. Good riddance. And there are 0 people questioning the compensation the Packers gave up. None. Everyone's like, that's all Green Bay had to give up? Really? Are you fucking kidding me? That's all they had to give up? Because it seems like there's a goddamn typo somewhere. Now, yes, the contract is a little steep at the moment. 2 first-round picks, though, those are going to be in the mid to low 20s at best. Probably pushing 30, 31, 32 if Micah balls out. Yeah. If I had Micah Parsons, I'd take that deal a million times over. You can even make the argument that the Packers have actually drafted better players in the second round over the past few years. So I really don't think this affects them negatively. This is truly unprecedented, especially in August for Green Bay. But how much better does this actually make them? Not a lot, if I'm being honest. But that's only because I think their defense was better than it gets credit for last season. They were 7th in yards allowed, 6th in points allowed. The knock on them is that they weren't great on getting consistent quarterback pressure. Well, their 45 sacks were actually tied for 6th best overall. Guess who had the 3rd most sacks last season? The Cowboys. So when I say Micah doesn't make the Packers a lot better, it's because the defense was pretty good. It's also to mislead you because it makes them fucking great. Green Bay had 17 picks last season, tied with the Steelers, third best. A big part of that, of course, was the addition of Xavier McKinney, their free agent splash signing in 2024. It's not even Micah's 12 and a half sacks that Green Bay really needs. He's good for 12 and a half sacks every single year. What Micah brings is constant pressure on opposing quarterbacks. Despite their solid sack numbers, Rashawn Gary led the team with just 47 quarterback pressures. Oh, and guess who they got to keep? Rashawn Gary! For some reason, to have the foundation of a championship defense, you need a guy getting a lot more than 47 pressures. Micah had 70 pressures last season, and he missed 4 games. Not 6 games, Jerry. 4. Micah is going to enable the Packers to get to opposing quarterbacks without sending extra rushers, and it will be those additional 70 pressures he brings. That's the real difference. Not just sacks for the Packers defense, but converted corner Bo Melton from Rutgers, by the way, his job just got a whole lot freaking easier. And whatever his interception total is listed at right now, I'd go higher because Micah makes opposing quarterbacks do dumb shit. And the guy who's opposing those quarterbacks are going to attest when they're doing dumb shit is going to be Bo Melton. Oh, and by the way, Micah led the NFL in pressures in 2023 with 103. He can miss 4 games and still be the Packers' most effective edge rusher. And I know you're thinking, what about 2022? He only had 90 pressures. Sad, I know. Unfortunately, that was tied with Nick Bosa for the most in the NFL. That's why Packertown, USA is elated today to the Packers of all things, and why Dallas is mourning like JFK just got shot in the fucking head again, and why Jerry Jones will never leave his house again. One reason you try to make decisions like these in, I don't know, March versus August is so you can attempt to replace a player like Micah in the draft, which happens in April every year. Every year, Jerry, it happens in April, the draft. A move like this means you're not serious about the current season. However, I am thoroughly enjoying the spin that Jerry Jones loyalists are trying to put on this for Jerry.
But what does he do behind the scenes to the culture of who the Dallas Cowboys are? For Dallas not willing to sign him, it must have been significant enough to say, hey, let's get rid of this guy, even though he's a great player, and let's try to build this thing kind of like the little engine that could, us against the world type of thing. And I know it sounds crazy, but I applaud Dallas in letting him go and trying to build a culture of team instead of an individual. And we'll see what happens with Dallas this year. But I don't think this is a play for 2025. I think it's a play for 25, 26, 27, and beyond.
And to Kirk Herbstreit, I'll just say, thank God the Cowboys have George Pickens, the glue of the locker room, as he's known, to make sure that that attitude in Dallas is just right. Jerry's backtracking is honestly more sad than funny to me. I feel like we're just watching an old, powerful man deteriorate in front of our eyes. Surely we haven't seen that happen in recent years in the U.S. government. No offense to Kenny Clark, but never have the words, "we gained a Pro Bowl player," rang so hollow. Jerry said he received unanimous consent from all of the coaches and decision makers in the Dallas Cowboys organization on this trade. Normally, I am pro jobs. I support people not getting fired. But I would personally fire every single person in that organization who agrees that this was a good idea. Actually, this is a good litmus test for whether or not you know anything about football. Remove the money. Remove the bad trade comp, how August is the worst time to do a blockbuster trade. Remove all of that. And the timing is exponentially bad because the absolute shittiest thing you can do to a new head coach, besides have a horse kick his quarterback in the face on September 1st, is trade away a cornerstone defensive player 1 week before the player starts. Not before the player, before the season starts. I think Coach Eberflus has been really good at that in terms of using scheme to get pressure on the quarterback. But good luck schematically dialing up 100 quarterback pressures that you didn't even have to think about when Micah Parsons was on the field. Here's a little metaphor. I know you've been training for this marathon for the last 7 months, Brian, but I'm going to have to cut off your left foot and also give you a laxative the night before your 10K. But you can schematically dial up a way to run on one foot while shitting profusely the entire run, can't you? Can't you? The trade has pushed the Packers over the Lions as the NFC North betting favorites. That's insane for the acquisition of a single defensive player. Conversely, the Cowboys went from 50 to 1 to 60 to 1 odds to win the Super Bowl. I understand $47 million per season is a lot for an edge rusher. Sure, Jerry probably could have paid him $43 million per year, but that's no longer relevant. Even $47 per year won't be crazy in 2 years. And the thing nobody ever brings up is when a guy like Micah asked to be the highest paid player in his position is the 4 years that a guy like Micah played and far exceeded his value. Team owners get to exploit extremely talented rookies for 4 to 5 years when they hit. The trade-off is at marquee positions, receiver, quarterback, edge rusher. You then overpay a little to keep that guy. The Cowboys go against the Eagles in Week 1, and the Lions go against the Packers in Week 1. So I'm curious to see who actually wins those. I think the Lions are not going to win against the Packers. I think losing Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn is a big loss for them, especially with the loss of a lot of their starting O-linemen. I don't think they're going to do bad this year, the Lions, but I don't think they're going to be able to beat the Packers in Week 1, especially if Micah is actually playing for them. And I don't think the Cowboys are going to be able to beat the Eagles, but I think their offense will do well. One of my biggest takeaways is the ridiculous ways in which Jerry Jones makes decisions. His firing of Jimmy Johnson after back-to-back Super Bowl wins is actually dumber than trading Micah Parsons. But Jerry luckily won a Super Bowl anyway, and he's been operating like that lightning in a bottle can keep on getting harnessed for him. Even though firing a back-to-back Super Bowl winning head coach is asinine, it worked out because at the time the Cowboys roster was so incredibly talented that they won their third Super Bowl anyway. Winning that third Super Bowl ruined the Cowboys' future because Jerry has unrealistic expectations on how you can win in the league. Jerry has continued to operate his business like he has that roster of players from the early 90s. But he doesn't. He fired Jimmy Johnson for the simple reason that Jimmy Johnson was getting too much credit and attention for the Cowboys' success. So watching Jerry let Parsons go because Jerry felt offended that Micah reneged on an alleged handshake deal should not be a surprise to me. But as a fan of football, as a fan of understanding that when you draft exceptional players, you keep them, this goes against everything that makes sense to me. And therefore, I am indeed shocked. Micah's one minor flaw as a player is that he's not the best run defender at his position. He graded out similarly to Trey Hendrickson, in fact, in that department with a PFF grade of 66.68 across his career. But sure, Jerry, tell yourself whatever you need. Also, not to be that guy, but Kenny Clark has graded out more poorly against the run than Micah for 4 straight seasons. Good luck to Kenny, but I think in 5 years this is sandwiched between the Deshaun Watson and A.J. Brown trade as the worst of the last decade. At the end of the day, this trade isn't just about Micah Parsons or the Packers or even the Cowboys. It's about watching in real time the difference between a front office trying to win and a front office trying to justify itself. Green Bay saw a generational player available and pounced. Dallas saw hurt feelings and a balance sheet and somehow convinced himself that subtraction equals addition. Maybe one day the Cowboys will stumble their way into another Super Bowl this very same way that Jerry stumbled into his third ring after firing Jimmy Johnson. But banking on lightning in a bottle isn't a strategy, it's a prayer. And as much as Jerry likes to think he's playing 4D chess, this was more like flipping the board over because you didn't like where the pieces were. The Packers just got better today. The Cowboys just got worse. And the rest of us just got another decade of laughing at Jerry Jones's masterclass in self-sabotage. Thanks for watching.